All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Imagine treating the 1860s United States as a massive, complex corporation facing the ultimate hostile takeover, and Abraham Lincoln as its wartime CEO. If you're a busy executive or a leader looking for an absolute masterclass in crisis management, you are definitely in the right place. We are going to look past the stovepipe hat and the mythology and analyze Lincoln's tenure as a high-stakes corporate turnaround.
Executives love the bottom line up front, so here is our exact roadmap. We've got the self-taught strategist, navigating political factions, managing the ultimate crisis, pivoting the core mission, and securing a lasting legacy. Let's get into it.
Starting with Section 1, the self-taught strategist, skill acquisition and early career.
You know, we really have to look at Lincoln's early years as an aggressive period of foundational skill building. Just look at this rapid progression. In 1832, he leveraged his sheer physical presence and charisma to get elected as a militia captain. By 34, he's in the state legislature. By 46, he's in Congress. And in 1860, he takes the top job, the 16th president. The guy didn't just sit around waiting for things to happen.
But how did he actually acquire the technical skills to lead? He didn't have fancy mentors or an Ivy League degree. It was sheer, brute force determination. He literally borrowed legal texts, like Blackstone's commentaries, and taught himself the law. He famously bragged that he studied with nobody. Talk about the ultimate self-starter mentality, right?
So these early roles, they were basically his corporate training ground. As a prairie lawyer, he wasn't just settling small-town squabbles. He was taking on massive, incredibly complex infrastructure disputes like representing the Illinois Central Railroad, a huge corporate client. Plus, he was a master of out-of-the-box thinking. Get this. In a murder trial, he actually discredited an eyewitness who claimed to see the crime by moonlight. How? By whipping out a farmer's almanac to prove the moon was way too low that night. Brilliant. He was mastering diverse client management and creative problem-solving long before he ever stepped foot in the Oval Office.
Okay, moving to Section 2, navigating political factions, the hostile boardroom takeover.
When Lincoln took over as CEO in 1860, he walked into what was essentially a deeply fractured, toxic boardroom. The organization was literally breaking apart. His immediate hurdle? Managing this absolute nightmare of a stakeholder map. You've got the radical Republicans demanding immediate abolition and really harsh penalties. Then you've got the Copperheads, these anti-war Democrats who just wanted peace at absolutely any cost. And, maybe the most delicate group, the border states. These were slave-holding states still loyal to the Union, but they could defect at any second. Lincoln knew right away that any compromise would infuriate someone. He somehow had to keep this fragile coalition from completely imploding. To manage this, he used his first inaugural address as a critical internal comms tool. He had to lay down the law and establish his vision firmly. He stated that a majority held in restraint by constitutional checks is the only true sovereign of a free people. Basically, he was denouncing the anarchy of secession, telling the whole organization, look, these are the rules of our boardroom, and we absolutely are not abandoning them.
Which brings us to Section 3, managing the ultimate crisis, wartime operations and resource allocation.
Think of the Civil War as the ultimate crisis management scenario, one that required massive resource allocation. And look, every good executive needs clear KPIs, right? Lincoln distilled his strategy down to 2 clear, non-negotiable operational priorities that guided every single military appointment he made. Number 1, ensure headquarters, Washington, D.C., is well defended. And number 2, conduct an aggressive war effort for a prompt, decisive victory. Everything else was totally secondary to those goals. To actually hit those KPIs, he was incredibly hands-on. He deliberately picked civilian generals from across the political spectrum. Why? Because he needed buy-in from their specific constituents. And he wasn't afraid to make highly controversial executive decisions to maintain order, like suspending the writ of habeas corpus, essentially removing standard legal protections. He implemented a massive naval blockade to completely choke off the competition's supply chain. He even brilliantly diffused the Trent Affair, where U.S. forces illegally seized Confederate envoys to avoid a disastrous two-front war with Britain. Oh, and he had no problem firing underperformers. He swapped out his inefficient Secretary of War Simon Cameron for the highly effective Edwin Stanton. He was deep in the weeds, supervising tactics to ensure absolute peak efficiency.
Now, I want you to really grasp the sheer scale of this crisis. $2.8 billion. By 1866, government borrowing hit that absolutely staggering number just to keep the war effort going. We're talking about an operational cost unlike anything the nation had ever seen before.
So how do you fund something like that?
Well,
Lincoln's administration had to get really creative. They implemented an income tax, but here's the kicker. Only an estimated 1.3% of the national population actually had to pay it. It was a brilliant move to secure vital capital without financially crushing the everyday citizens whose support he so desperately needed.
All right, on to Section 4, pivoting the core mission from preservation to emancipation.
Right in the middle of this operational nightmare, Lincoln realized the original scope of the project just wasn't cutting it anymore. So he executed a massive strategic pivot. Notice the transition here. He shifted from a strictly operational baseline, preserving the Union at all costs regardless of slavery, to a profound moral restructure of the entire nation. Actively abolishing slavery became the new mandate. This wasn't just tweaking a tactic. This was fundamentally rewriting the organization's core identity.
Now, to manage stakeholder expectations before dropping this massive pivot, he clearly communicated his initial priorities. In a famous public letter to newspaper editor Horace Greeley in August 1862, he explicitly stated, "My paramount object in the struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or to destroy slavery." He wanted everyone on the exact same page. The Union came first. This effectively insulated him against critics who tried to say he was overstepping his presidential authority.
But timing in business is everything, right? So, backed by a crucial military win in Antietam, he finally made his move. By January 1st, 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, noting, "I never in my life felt more certain that I was doing right." Boom. Just like that, the abolition of slavery became a direct military and organizational objective. It completely drained the South's labor force while injecting this profound new moral energy straight into the Northern effort.
And finally, Section 5, securing a lasting legacy, post-crisis restructuring.
As the crisis finally started winding down and victory was in sight, Lincoln didn't just put his feet up. He pivoted entirely to long-term legacy. He knew putting out the fire wasn't enough. He had to fireproof the House for the future. So, he championed the 13th Amendment through Congress to constitutionally abolish slavery once and for all. He established a Reconstruction Plan and signed the Freedmen's Bureau Bill to support millions of newly freed citizens. But get this, even while fighting the war, he was pushing the 1862 Homestead Act to expand Western lands and backing the Pacific Railway Acts for the first transcontinental railroad. He was literally laying down the legal and physical infrastructure for a modernized, rapidly expanding nation.
And we absolutely have to talk about how he ensured the organizational culture was forever changed. The Gettysburg Address? That is an absolute masterclass in corporate messaging. In just over 2 minutes, he redefined the nation's foundational principle. It was no longer just about preserving a collection of states, it was about human equality and a new birth of freedom. He rebranded the whole purpose of the American experiment so effectively that we still use his exact framing today.
Tragically, Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, right as this massive turnaround was completed. But his tenure proved something absolutely vital for all of us. True, effective leadership requires managing impossible factions. It means having the guts to adapt your core mission when the data and the moral imperative demand it. And above all, it requires maintaining crystal clear communication throughout the storm. Ultimately, his decisive executive actions preserved the Union and destroyed chattel slavery.
So I want to leave you with this thought as you head back into your own leadership roles today. When you look at the challenges coming your way, whether that's a fractured board, a shifting market, or a massive operational hurdle, how will you pivot, communicate, and act to secure a lasting legacy? Maybe take a page from the prairie lawyer who studied with nobody, yet somehow managed the greatest crisis in American history. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep leading with purpose.